Hello, hello, friends. Welcome back to the Creating a Fantastical Life podcast. I'm very excited to have on another guest for the 12 Days of Breakthroughs. This is Kelly Feng. Kelly is a certified life coach and better known as Dear Love Coach. Her passion is helping people lead their lives with love and wants to bring wholesomeness back to dating. Kelly is also a mom of two, a wife, and along with coaching, has an Airbnb business. Please welcome one of the most loving people I know and my sister, Kelly Feng.
Hi,
Hi.
everyone. I am so happy to be here.
We've been trying to plan Kelly to be on my podcast for like a year. And so I'm so excited to finally have her on for 12 Days of Breakthroughs. And this season is all about unbrainwashing yourself because this whole podcast is centered around helping people come back home to themselves, right? And as we become more of ourselves, we are able to become more free, have more inner peace. But a lot of that is robbed by the way that we are socialized by society, by our parents, by all the shoulds and should nots. So I want to start by asking you, what was something you were brainwashed to believe about yourself, other people, or the world, and like the way that the world works that you later found out to just not be the truth?
Ooh, deep question. Um, yeah, I think the biggest thing was probably parenting for me has been a whole new journey. Obviously, like our mom was a stay-at-home mom, but she was like on like the extreme end of a stay-at-home mom. Like she made our lunches fresh every morning and would drop it off to school for lunchtime. She was always available. She shuttled us to all the appointments, all the like golf tournaments, music lessons, like everything we did growing up. Like our mom was just always there and like ready to do whatever she needed to do for us. But I think it got to the point where like that became her identity, like us and like being a mom and like it took away her own self-focus. And so obviously growing up with that, it gave me like that sense was like that was my idea for like how I wanted to be a parent and how I wanted to be a mom and specifically. And now being a mom myself, I have like a totally different view. Like the way that she did it was amazing and incredible, and I have to give her all the credit for that and the way that she parented us. But it is so hard to achieve, um, especially like her level of selflessness um, is amazing. I mean, the fact that she still continues it that way too, and now even for like my kids. But yeah, like I really realized, and I think there's a big movement in mom life of finding the balance, finding the time for ourselves. Even though yes, mom is a part of our identity, it's not our only identity.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought up the selflessness piece because I think that is something that is definitely heavily conditioned, especially into women, and women being the caretakers and nurturers, in like relationships, being the person who is not just like a girlfriend or a wife, but also like a therapist and a mom and like as to how we grew up, our mom did all the chores too. Like we never had chores. She did the laundry, she made our bed, she cleaned and all the stuff. And I can't help but feel like it created some type of resentment too, because, she would have like moments where it was just a lot of yelling or like anger and pent up frustration, but it wasn't necessarily directly geared toward us. I feel like a lot of it had to do with just taking on so much. So when you talk about selflessness, like what were some things that you felt like you believed like you had to do as a mom, or like what a good mom does, like what that means, and then how you think about it now?
Yeah, I think my original idea was, like everything, all my like waking time would be always dedicated to the kids. But I think it really started shifting when I switched from being a stay-at-home mom to working. Because then my time was even more split up, right? Because I have my work hours, but then I come home and I still have to be a mom. And then by the time I was like done being a mom, the girls were in bed. I was exhausted from my day, and I just needed to like sleep and be ready for the next day. And so it was even harder to like really figure out like, okay, where can I even squeeze in some time for myself? Um,
Mm.
and also too, like with my husband being such a demanding job, in the medical world, the medical field, oftentimes I'm like left solo parenting. And so it's, yeah, it's been a difficult balance.
Yeah, and not only is he just a doctor, right, he's also like a military doctor. So you're a military spouse, a doctor, wife, mom of two, have two business. Like it's a lot, right? And I think there's a lot of conditioning out there, like a lot of um thought about how people should just be able to do it all.
Mhm.
And some people make it look so effortless online. And there's more and more people that are talking about like the reality of it and how it's really difficult, but especially like having time for yourself. What is the reality of having all these things to juggle and having all these different desires that like you want to do and you want to participate in, but also knowing that you're human and have a capacity that you're going to hit? Like, what is the reality of being you emotionally, mentally, and physically, spiritually?
Yeah, I think the reality really has been, especially this past year with me starting my new businesses, is to really figure out what my priorities are. Because the list of how much what I want to do and the list that I actually can do is so different, right? Like I have so many ideas, so many creative things that I want to get done. But the realities of like when I really focus on like, what I want to get done with my family, what I want to get done in my businesses, and the things that I can truly achieve within the time allotted, it's really helped me kind of like narrow down and like really pick a few things that I can accomplish. Um, which it also like is a cycle. Like the fact that I do prioritize just a few items, get them done, it makes me feel better in the sense of like, okay, I can do this. I just need to like make that list that I need to get done much smaller. But the reality is like it is still tough, you know. um, like even trying to find time to go to my home gym, it's you would
It's
think it's
literally in your garage. Yeah.
I think it's so easy because yeah, it's in our garage. I just need to walk into that room. But because of the list and because of all the other priorities that I want to get done, it sometimes falls to the wayside. Right. But it's for me, it's really now showing up with intention every day and awareness. I'm aware of what I want to get done, what my priorities are, and then that way I can focus like the intentional choosing of what I want to get done. And also, even choosing what I will wait to do.
Mhm. Do you feel like there was some shame or like mom guilt and stuff like that that you had to undo and like replace with in order to be able to make your list smaller and like not feel like, oh, you haven't been productive today or you haven't done enough today or you should have been able to do more? 'Cause I know that's something that a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah, I think I definitely had a lot of mom guilt when I first started working, especially after transitioning, because I was a stay-at-home mom for the first 18 months of my oldest. And then I transitioned into working for the first time. And there was definitely a lot of mom guilt of like, oh my gosh, I have to put my child into daycare. Um, like I can totally manage, being home with her this whole time. It's not that bad. Um, but it's definitely been a shift perspective because I realized then that working really helped bring out like another side of me. Like it's helped me with like social interaction. It was nice to like be able to talk to adults and like use my brain for work purposes and not just like kind of like the mundane cycle of staying at home. Um, and I think that guilt shifted away when I really realized like, okay, this is going to benefit all of us. It's not just for me, but it's benefiting me because I'm showing up better as a mom. When I do get to be home, I'm like 100% more dedicated and focused. And I have noticed like that still kind of creeps in now because even though both of my girls are in school now and I have dedicated work time while they're there, I still notice like when I have things that I want to finish up and they're home, they'll be like, Mommy, why are you still on your phone? Like, pay attention to us. So there's definitely some mom guilt then. So even then now, it's still trying to figure out like, okay, when are my times that I can do what I need to do? And then trying to be present in all my other moments too.
Yeah, the girls are definitely very demanding. I spent enough time with them, just like a few weeks of the year. Um, and it's also a lot. So I
Yes.
have lots
Either,
of kudos
yeah.
to you.
Right. Granted, there are 3 and 4, so they are still very much in an
Mhm.
attached age.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you discern when you can give and when you can receive or like set boundaries? Especially because you have such a large capacity and you do lead your life with love. Where is that balance for you?
In terms of what?
Like, how do you think about things? Like, what are the mindset pieces that kind of help you discern? Okay, this is when I need to be with myself, or this is like I'm okay with giving this time, giving this energy, doing these things, whatever, and then be able to just move on to the next thing.
I had to kind of relearn how to prioritize my time this year because both of my girls were in school for the first time. And so for the first time in 4 years, I've had unsolicited me time, right? And I thought I would be able to be so productive, but it really took me like a month to kind of figure out like, okay, during this time, what can I actually get done? I think it was the first time I realized how quickly like 6 to 7 hours can go by in a day. That was very interesting to learn, especially when I also want to start a new business. And trying to be like, okay, how many hours can I work? How many hours can I get a workout in? What else do I need to get done in the house before the girls are back? And kind of trying to figure that out. And I think after a month in, it really started to settle in where I could figure out my plan for the day. Um, and then truly too, like, it has helped me, dedicate like, okay, when I go pick up the girls, like this is my time with them. I appreciate it more, I value it more. And then too, like, after bedtime, I still have a little bit of time to myself, and that's kind of where I can wind down or I kind of finish up whatever I didn't get to wrap down or wrap up.
Mm.
Wrap
Yeah, I think one of the things that comes to mind right now is that so many people are conditioned in scarcity and lack, right? Or like fear of scarcity, really. It's like people don't even aren't actually like in scarcity when it comes to money or time or energy, but there's such a fear around not having enough that it bleeds into their entire day. So it's like, oh, I don't have enough time for myself. I don't have enough time to like be a mom and like be with my kids and whatever. So what is kind of the truth for you that you've replaced those thoughts with, or like that helps you not get in that mindset and stay in kind of like that you have enough time to do these things and you're allowed to enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say I still struggle with that. But at the same time, like, yeah, I recognize and I can see those thoughts. And then when I do have a productive day, I'm like, okay, that those thoughts are really not true. Right? Because if I'm truly dedicating and like picking, like 2 tasks to complete for the day, whether it's like I want to get like these things done for work or I just want to clean up the house in general, it's I think it's narrowing down what you really want to focus on, what you want to accomplish for the day, or even for like an allotted hour, and sticking to it, which is the hardest part, right? Because there's always going to be distractions, especially as a mom. Like that's where really I think we get caught up of, oh my gosh, there's not enough time, because then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to get this done, or I have to go order that, or I have to go shop for this. Right. But it's kind of like reining that back in and realizing, okay, you know what? I don't need to get all of this done right now or even today. Picking out really what's important, again, prioritizing, and then setting those bounds and getting it done.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously being a mom influences a lot of like the way that you perceive love, the way you give love, the way you receive love, and like how you lead your life with it. But firstly, you were, you know, single and a child, and then you met your husband in college. And you guys had an interesting relationship there where you actually took a break and came back and decided you guys were the ones for each other and wanted to get married and start a family. Tell us a little bit more about your journey with love outside of being a mom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a cycle, right? I'm already thinking about the future cycle of my girls. But yeah, I didn't have a ton of dating experience. I kind of started in high school. Um, and the funny thing is the college that I went to is like 80% male. Or actually, truly, I think when I was there, it was like 18% female. So even a little bit more. So it was a really crazy ratio, right? Um, and our sweet freshman year was comprised of 6 girls. And then half of our suite were all on the golf team together. So we were a very close knit suite for sure. And it was, yeah, it was fun. I think that was my first time, of getting like a taste of freedom. Grew up in Michigan, but went to school in Arizona. So I was very, very far away from home, in a completely new climate. But I definitely like went into college ready for the change. I was ready to kind of explore myself without my hometown circle, without my parents, and like really seeing who I was going to be in my next phase of life. But yeah, in terms of dating, girls at our school definitely had like our pick. There was very much so, limited options for the guys and an abundance of options for the girls. So we definitely had fun. I definitely enjoyed my time, before dating my husband. Um, but yeah, freshman year is really fun. I think it's important too for women to go into dating with intention, right? Like for me, my freshman year, I was like, okay, I don't want to settle down. I don't want to have a boyfriend. I kind of just want to explore, right? Um, and I definitely did that, and I can only recommend that. But again, it has to be your choice. And yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But let's
I
see.
think definitely a lot of people need to, especially women, like there's still some work to do personally, like, for everybody on their dating life and like what it really looks like. What is it that they really want? And I think this our society is kind of like just throw yourself in there, right? Just get in the pool and you'll figure it out as you go. Do you feel like there is kind of an intention into dating of like it's fine to just like go and see what dating is even like first, see what you like, and then figure it out as you go? Or do you feel like, there's some people who only want to date to marry, or like they believe that dating is for marriage, like that's the thing that they should be working towards, but they haven't necessarily even questioned who they want to date or things like that. So how would you prepare like this generation of people who like are starting to date for the first time or are dating but aren't, happy with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's so different, right? Because even when I was dating back then, that was 2012, so apps hadn't really started rolling out. Um,
Mhm.
I didn't get to experience those until I took a break. I think that was like 2015, 2016. And yeah, it is really, really different out there, especially with the introduction of apps. I think, it's really started changing the dating world with like hookup culture. Um, and I think we're starting to get too focused onto like red flags and just, swiping through the little bios that we see and the little 5 pictures that we see of a description of a person. Like truly, do you feel like that is a full representation of someone? Like the 5 photos that they pick to describe their entire lifetime, and like a few words, truly a few words. You break it down to a few letters, like what, 1,000 letters, and we want to be able to get a full picture of someone. Um, it is hard. It's really, really hard. I do think there are different reasons to date. I don't think there's any issue with dating to like have fun. Um, but at the same time, like you have to be honest with yourself. Is this what you actually want, or is this something you're doing because that's what society says you need to do now, right?
Mhm.
Or because that's what all your friends are doing on the apps, right? Like you need to be very clear with what your intent is. Um,
Mm.
because
I think
ultimately what you decide for your intention is what you're going to get as a result.
Right, right. And I think there's a lot of people, men and women included, who also date to validate their self-worth because they haven't done enough of the work to understand who they really are, what they really want, and see themselves as worthy of the relationship that they truly want, instead of just making do with what they have, especially women socialized to believe like you should just take what you get and like be grateful for what you have. Women have a timeline and men don't, and so you kind of are more like prone to believing that you only have a certain amount of time, only a certain number of opportunities to even date. And I've worked with multiple women who, um, they believe that they don't fit like this specific beauty standard, or they're comparing themselves to their friends. And when they go on dates, they feel this immense pressure to like sleep with somebody, because they're like, well, they don't know if there's going to be somebody else. And it's like men go through this too, where I've had clients who have also like spent a ton of money, men and women, like thousands of dollars on somebody who they're not even really dating. Like they're just in the talking phase, but they feel so desperate for love, and then they feel all the shame for using all this money, when in reality like they just have such a desire for love, and they feel lonely, and they don't know how else to kind of go about it. And I think it's also this culture of impatience where we don't want to have this time to like figure out who somebody really is. If we just love them, we want to love them, and we don't want people to love us back. How can people kind of recollect that in your mind?
Yeah, I think you touched on some huge points, right? And it goes back to like abundance. Um, right? Like if we really think about it, there are so many people out there in the world. And there is no way, even if you date your entire lifetime from the moment you can start dating to the moment that you pass, you will never, ever go through the entire pool.
Right,
It's So
right.
that's like the first point, right? We have to go back to like the beginning of this thought of I don't have enough, there's not enough people, there's not going to be enough people. That is a complete false thinking,
Mhm.
right?
Well, so I think you might touch on this, but like for people listening, I think intellectually people understand that, but it's like the personalization of it, right? Of sure, there's a lot of people, but what about for me specifically? Is there enough people for me? Like people who are actually gonna want me and people that I want back.
Yeah. I think there's like a two-part fold in that, right? Because I think one, everybody has been so conditioned to have like their checklist, their quote unquote checklist for the perfect partner. One, there is no such thing as a perfect partner. And two, really what is on your checklist? Because if we're listing off, things that are very superficial, um, let me tell you, the superficial is maybe great when you first get into a relationship and that can make you very, very happy. However, think about it. Really, when you get down into the long term of a relationship, is the fact that your partner is so tall and handsome really going to help you overlook everything? Is it? Is it? I mean, I want to question that, right? Like, truly, how
Mhm.
important are some of the things on our quote unquote checklist? Um, I think that's like a huge thing people are starting to. I think I have seen like a shift in what we are looking for. I think people are starting to notice and realize, okay, I think this is especially true as women and men age. The superficial become less and less important. But truly, like the qualities of what we need for a long-term relationship become more noticeable, right? And
Mhm.
that's like if our partner is supportive of us, um, can you truly see like a partnership and a teamwork happening between you and your partner? How do you foresee you guys handling conflicts? And like, especially in the dating time, this is really where you get to kind of test and trial phase everything. Because what happens while you're dating ideally should set you up with a great foundation for your relationship. Um, a big thing though I do see is like people go into dating having this different persona, having like different behavior because they're trying to attract who they think they want. But it's unrealistic and unsustainable for us to continue pretending to be a person and not being our true selves, right? If we're
Mhm.
showing up as our true selves, honestly, openly, and with full transparency, and then we go about this trying to attract, a partner for us, we're only going to have much more better candidates and more likely chance of like being able to have a long sustaining relationship.
Can you talk about why it works to just like be yourself on dates and what that really means if someone hasn't fully explored who they are, they think they know who they are, but it's still kind of like a front.
Um, yeah, I was even having a chat with my girlfriend about this the other day, but I think there's to show up as your true self means you already know a lot about who you are. And most adults, I don't think, will take that time or journey to really get to know themselves. And not to say that you will not change and that a relationship will not change you, because it 100% will. I believe we all change as we age, as we should, right? We are evolutionary creatures. We evolve as we age, as we learn more. Um, and so that that's not my point of getting to know yourself. I think there are core things down to the fundamental that I've seen, so many people talk about is like there are things that you just as a core to your human soul, like what it is. For example, like if it's a religion, if you're religious, like some of that is just like down to your soul, it will never change until your last breath, right? Politics is for some reason a huge issue right now, right? Like people are so hardcore about what they believe politically that if they meet someone that have different beliefs or have different opinions, for some reason that is a huge issue. When let me tell you, my husband and I have very different thoughts politically, even religiously. We've always been, on different spectrums, and that has no effect on our relationship. Because we have to separate, like opinions and beliefs about things, with what it takes to like make a relationship work. Not to say like you can't have issues with that, because sometimes it does really affect your day to day. But ultimately, like at least for us, these things like politics does not affect us the day to day. Even religion doesn't necessarily affect us day to day. But when we're not showing up as our true self and like holding true to what we truly believe and things that we know we will not change, and just being open to whatever this next person shows up to, it makes it very hard and very confusing when you get to the point where you're trying to define the relationship and you're trying to see if things will work out in the long haul, because then whatever you have maybe been compromising on in your dating time, you're all of a sudden like, oh wait, no, that's not going to work for me long term. I'm not
Yeah.
willing to make sacrifices.
Yeah, something that comes to mind when you talk about especially difference in political and religious beliefs, I think, people can obviously find a balance if it's not totally different. I think if people are very conflicted, it might just be a very challenging baseline to start with. But for you two, my mind goes to, well, you both work, you both have kids too, you both have like a life together that you work on, that religion and politics, like if you don't want to talk about it, I feel like there might be other things that are like on your mind that you have to get done and like things to talk about. But when people are dating, like what I think so many people talk about, like what is going on in the world, or like what their goals are in life, and things affecting them. How do you think people can kind of see that bigger picture or focus on something that's not like trivial, but like finding that balance of talking about these things that might be contentious? Because I think religion and politics, like they fall in the same like almost taboo category as money and sex, but people are so like at each other's throats about it.
Yeah, I think especially when we're dating, if we can show up just with pure, genuine curiosity. And I think that's the issue now, especially with the way that apps are set up, right? Immediately, human nature, when we see somebody, we make a judgment. Whatever they're wearing, what they look like, what their face looks like, what color their skin is, what color their hair is, that's just natural human instinct. Anyone that says that they don't make any kind of assumption when they see a person is lying, because that is truly what our brain is set up to do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But when we see that, like, and even reading the bio, we have to be able to like open our minds, right? We are the smartest creatures on this world, Like we need to be able to use our function of our brain. And that's when we like kind of take our prefrontal cortex approach and be like, okay, yes, this is what that person showed, but there's so much more depth to a person. And then
Nowadays, like you can actually like even filter people based off of their political beliefs. Like there is like a thing that tells you whether they're Republican or Democratic or conservative or whatever it is.
yeah, and I think people are just, I don't know what it is about politics, but people have now like made that their identity.
Mm.
When in
What do
reality,
you think it is? Like if you're to take a guess and like why is that the case?
I think that's what the news is like pushing for everybody to do. And most people don't challenge that, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
We
like what's bigger than just politics and what side you're on or whatever. Like what is the truth in the piece of like your identity? Like if that was like a front, right? Just like how people use being good, being a good person or being a good mom or being a good daughter or whatever, being a good student. If that's like piece of their identity and we just think politics and what you believe politically is just another front for your identity. What is like the truth behind it?
I don't I have been asking myself this question, for a
Because
long.
I've thought about this because I am somebody who am very like, you know, seen as like left wing, right? Because I'm vegan. I live in California. I believe in abortion rights. I actually, for listeners who don't know us personally, I get into multiple arguments when I'm with Kelly's husband if we're talking about politics. So we just like avoid those topics now. But to me, a lot of it is based off of your own values, right? And I know for you, love is your number one value. And so that can help with having the compassion, empathy for other people, keeping curiosity and all this stuff. But to me, it's like part of my values of what I believe in the truth and accountability in, myself. Like a lot of that is expressed through the way that I live my life. And so when it comes to dating, if I'm dating somebody who has a completely different political view, like for example, somebody that I was talking to for a little bit, he was libertarian, right? Just believes that everyone should be able to do whatever they want. Now, at first I was kind of like, okay, yeah, like freedom, right? Freedom of choice and like all these things. And then I started to learn a little bit more about it, but like just seeing the way that he was interacting with people, interacting with me, and like how he led his life, I was like, this is not aligned with how I live my life. Right. And I think politics, it being a front, kind of can tell people a little bit more like right away whether or not like what the chances are of it's working. Obviously it has its downside of like you can totally just be like super strict with it and then lose out on all these opportunities to actually find real connection. But when it's about aligning with your values, how do you feel like people can understand what is it that they truly value versus what is a conditioned value? Because like religion, people are grow up with religion or are taught to be religious, but they actually don't really believe in that. Like how can people start breaking away from things that are like this conditioned values based stuff to really see what do they value?
Well, I think honestly dating is great for that because as you start meeting more people, opposing views, uh, opposing opinions, like you really start to kind of solidify, okay, like this is something that is a non-negotiable for me. Like this is something that I will not change my mind about, versus there also are always things like for me when I started dating, I was very open to exploring like my religious beliefs. That was something that I hadn't really ever done up when I was until I get to that point. And that was something I was totally open to exploring. I think now I have solidified my view, but that was something I was open to. I do believe like when you're dating, this is also a great chance for you to really figure out what it is that you believe and what it is that you need out of a partner. I just think people now are so wrapped up into like, oh my gosh, we conflict on this one thing that nothing else matters.
Yeah. What are some questions that people can be asking themselves when they do go on these dates to help them come back home to themselves, like get clear on like what it is about them instead of making it about the other person?
Yeah, I think you need to figure out true like what are the things that are non-negotiables for you, right? And what are things that you are open to compromise, open to learning about. The reason being, you in a relationship is never going to stop between like what you have to learn, what you both will have to accommodate to each other about. Like, things will pop up many years into your life that you may never have had to experience even during your dating time, no matter how many years you've dated, that now all of a sudden, like, okay, this is a thing. Right. And I think being able to approach dating in the same way of like, okay, I need to figure out what it is that's important for me, but then what are also things that I'm open and willing to compromise, because compromise always have to happen in a long-term relationship on both parties, right? One party should never have to compromise more than the other, but also at the same time, like, don't go into a relationship thinking just because you have found the perfect person that has fit all entire points that there will not be times and moments that you need to compromise.
Right, right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and like sharing all these thoughts. I think it has given people a lot to chew on and to consider for themselves, especially like turning back inwards towards yourself and having that compassion and open-mindedness to approach dating with, which I think is so necessary if people want to find genuine connection. What is like the last thing that you want people to kind of hear from you? What do you want to leave viewers with?
I would love to challenge people to really start challenging the way that they date, right? Challenging the way that you find your partner, really looking inwards first, and then being ready to receive your partner. People focus too much on like what they need from that other person without realizing like I also have to put in that effort, right, for my partner to want and receive me. And yeah, like people are forgetting like this is always a two-way street, right? You are looking for someone, but so is your partner.
Well, thank you so much. Where can people find you and what are you working on if people want to work with you?
Yeah, please reach out to me via Instagram or TikTok, Dear Love Coach. I also have my website, dearlovecoach.com, if you want to directly book a session with me. I am working on a few different things. I have a course coming up that will be launching shortly, which is really teaching you how to date from the very beginning of finding yourself, setting boundaries, being ready to, make a list of what you need out of a partner, out of a long-term relationship, moving on to the dating phase of how we're going to navigate and find qualified candidates. And then ultimately, getting yourself into a relationship in 90 days. I also want to launch a new dating service because I do see that, there are issues with the current methods that we have out there. And so I'd love to bring a new method to integrate dating and coaching.
Fantastic. So all of Kelly's links will be in the show notes below. Go follow her, check out her website, book with her. Obviously, if you are starting to date or challenged with dating, check out her course. And hopefully we can bring her on later. So thanks so much, Kelly, for joining us today. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.